We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Zimbabweans struggle to get by amid economic and food crisis.
The fuel is going up. The prices are going up because the fuel is going up.
Venezuelans react to Duque authorizing nationality for their children. In Argentina, the trial against priests to resume on August 14.
La pericia complementaria o
Could Mexico cactus solve the world's plastics problem?
Fue una idea de alumnos empezar con esto.
In Sudan, the U.S. calls for an independent investigation on violence.
So a thorough and independent investigation into the violence.
U.S. and Britain back a rapid trade deal post-Brexit.
It's my pleasure to welcome Foreign Secretary Rob Dominic on your first visit.
An FBI agent says the Dayton gunman, quote, was exploring violent ideologies.
We have uncovered evidence throughout the course of our investigation that the shooter was exploring violent ideologies.
Plus, let's visit the Washington Monument, the tallest structure in D.C. Hello everyone, I'm Anna Kui, bringing you stories from around the globe, and this is Eagle News broadcasting from Las Vegas. Zimbabwe's economy has been on a downturn for over a decade with perennial food shortages, a foreign currency crunch, scarcity of basic commodities, and high unemployment. According to the World Food Programme, or WFP, around 5 million people, or a third of the 16 million Zimbabweans, are in need of aid, and at least half of them are on the cusp of starvation.
chingwa chiri kutendora apa inini ndiri kutambira mari kana ndotivha chia ndiri kutambira ini nhasi kukwanisa kuwana kana mari kuti ndikwanisa kutenga chingwa ivo kuti $10 ndiri kutambira $250.
Yeah, but this idea of depending on aid is not really how to build a country. Why should we be relying on aid when we've got all the resources?
Because at the time when they said the US dollar is not working, the multi-currency, things are going tougher every day. The fuel is going up, the prices are going up because the fuel is going up.
The UN Food Agency on Tuesday launched a $331 million appeal for aid donations to feed millions of people in crisis-hit Zimbabwe, which is reeling from a drought and the high cost of food. Speaking at the launch of the appeal, WFP Executive Director David Beasley said 2.5 million Zimbabweans were in crisis emergency mode, marching towards starvation. He added that by early next year, 5.5 million in all will be in a similar position. A former regional breadbasket, Zimbabwe's economy has been in a downturn for over a decade, with perennial food shortages, a foreign currency crunch, scarcity of basic commodities, and high unemployment. The government blames the food shortages on the effects of climate change, while critics say the shortages are a result of a slump in agricultural production following the government's land reforms. The last agricultural period was particularly bad as the country was hit by an El Niño-induced drought. In addition to food shortages, the appeal also targeted the humanitarian needs of victims of the monster cyclone Idai, which swept through parts of eastern Zimbabwe earlier this year. The cyclone, which also affected parts of Malawi and Mozambique, affected 570,000 Zimbabweans and displaced some 50,000 of them. Finance Minister Mutuli Nukub last week said the government was feeling hundreds of thousands of people affected by drought, both in rural and urban areas, providing grain to 757,000 households since January. According to official figures, the country's inflation rate spiked to 176% in June, up from 97.85% in May, and the government has decided to stop publishing inflation statistics for the next 6 months, raising fears of the 2008 hyperinflation. Venezuelans in Bogota react to President Ivan Duque signing an order allowing 24,000 children born in the country to Venezuelan parents and risking statelessness to be given Colombian nationality.
Me parece excelente que el gobierno colombiano haya tomado esa decisión porque mi hijo nació aquí y todavía no le han dado la nacionalidad. Y me gustaría pues que se la dieran porque él nació aquí.
Bueno, me parece para los niños que van a nacer aquí, que son extranjeros, muy bien. Porque ya que si se devuelven allá tampoco le van a dar la patria que necesitan, ¿verdad? La nacionalidad. Entonces eso está muy bien que nacionalice a esos niños que nacen y ya después quedan, como se dice, expatriados, ¿no? Ni es de allá ni es de acá.
Para nadie es un secreto que Venezuela no se puede vivir en esta situación en la que estamos. Y si el gobierno colombiano brinda ese apoyo, bueno, agradecido y bienvenido sea y cónchale, está bien, es algo que motiva a uno como persona, como venezolano.
Colombia President Ivan Duque signed an order on Monday allowing 24,000 children born in the country to Venezuelan parents and risking statelessness to be given Colombian nationality. The children were the victims of a legal loophole that prevented them from obtaining their parents' nationality due to insurmountable obstacles, but left them without Colombian nationality due to legislation that doesn't recognize citizenship based on place of birth. He claimed the children were unable to get Venezuelan nationality because Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro's government had ceased to provide a consular service or documentation in Colombia. Caracas broke off diplomatic relations with Bogota in February over Duque's support for opposition leader Juan Guaido, who declared himself acting president in January in a direct challenge to Maduro's authority, sparking a power struggle that has ground to an impasse. The measure, which will be valid for 2 years, allows children born to Venezuelan parents from August 19, 2015 to be given Colombian nationality. In Argentina, the trial against 2 priests and a gardener accused of sexually abusing deaf children in their care will continue on August 14, after the accused appeared in court for a second hearing in the city of Mendoza.
La pericia complementaria o ampliatoria, si se quiere, que ha pedido la defensa, la ha pedido en el momento del ofrecimiento de prueba, que en esta causa viene ya de hace varios meses, no es un pedido de ahora, y tiene que ver con el entendimiento que tiene Gómez del lenguaje de señas y las posibilidades que tiene de comunicación.
Extremadamente positiva porque ha dado lugar a que las víctimas no tengan que volver a declarar. Eso tiene mensajes claros que el tribunal entiende que está ante víctimas, no ante gente que miente, víctima que no tiene que ser revictimizada.
Mexico's prickly pear cactus, which is emblazoned on the country's flag, could soon play a new and innovative role in the production of biodegradable plastics. A packaging material that is made from the plant has been developed by a Mexican researcher and is offering a promising solution to one of the world's biggest pollution conundrums.
Fue una idea de alumnos empezar con esta producción de un plástico biodegradable a partir de nopal. De ahí se gesta la idea y empezamos a trabajar ese grupo de estudiantes y yo. Bueno, pues lo que hago básicamente es extraer un jugo del nopal y hacer una serie de mezclas con unos aditivos.
That substance is then mixed with non-toxic additives and stretched to produce sheets which are colored with pigments and folded to form different types of packaging. Pasco is still conducting tests, but hopes to patent her product later this year and look for partners in early 2020, with an eye towards larger scale production.
Exactamente, estamos en las pruebas de aplicaciones. Si se ven favorables las pruebas, pudiera haber en un futuro una transferencia de tecnología para poder comenzar con su producción en masa. Realmente creo que tanto las empresas para vender sus productos como los consumidores hacemos también ese uso exagerado de recursos, porque vas a la tienda y compras cualquier cosa y quiere una bolsa, o sea, de por sí ya tiene el empaque primario tu producto y luego el empaque secundario y a veces hasta un terciario, ¿no?
The cacti Pasco uses for her experiments come from San Esteban, a small town on the outskirts of Guadalajara, where they grow by the hundreds. San Esteban is located in Jalisco State, where, starting next year, single-use non-recyclable plastic bags, straws, and other disposable items will be banned. Mexico City and states such as Baja California have also introduced similar measures. According to the bill adopted by the local Congress in May, the capital city adopted a historic ban on plastic bags beginning in 2020. From 2021, straws, plastic plates, and cutlery and balloons will also be banned if they're made entirely or partially from plastic. Pasco says her new material would be no more than a drop in the ocean in the battle to preserve the environment. She said given the rampant production of industrial plastics and the time it takes to make her material, there would need to be other recycling strategies to make any concrete difference. Latin America and the Caribbean account for around 10% of worldwide waste, according to United Nations figures. In March, UN member states committed to significantly reduce single-use plastics over the next decade, although green groups warned that goal fell short of tackling the Earth's pollution crisis. Plastic pollution has become a global concern, particularly after bans imposed by China and other countries on the import of plastic waste from overseas. According to numbers released by the Plastics Europe Federation in June, despite widespread alarm on the environment cost, Asia and the United States lifted world production of plastic last year, while Europe saw a dip. More than 8 million tons of plastics enter the world's oceans every year. Coming up, in Sudan, the U.S. calls for an independent investigation on violence. U.S. and Britain back a rapid trade deal post-Brexit. An FBI agent says the Dayton gunman, quote, was exploring violent ideologies. Eagle News will be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, broadcasting from Las Vegas. I'm Anna Kui. After meeting with Sudan's military ruler Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, protest leaders and civil society figures, U.S. Undersecretary for Political Affairs David Hale said the U.S. calls for a thorough, independent investigation following the violence during the protests in Sudan.
We also discussed the importance of a thorough and independent investigation into the violence that has claimed numerous lives, according to credible reports, since the former regime was deposed. I raised that issue at every meeting. We stressed the need for the perpetrators to face justice, and America will use our diplomatic tools to ensure there is a civilian-led transition. Continuing progress on establishing a civilian-led transitional government that will enable the people of Sudan to realize their goals of ending conflicts, fully enjoying human rights. The fact is that Sudan remains designated as a state sponsor. That remains in effect. There are a number of things we're looking forward to engaging in a civilian-led government. The issues that before us include the promotion of human rights and religious freedom. Counterterrorism efforts are important as well, expanding those, addressing certain outstanding terrorist-related claims by American citizens, and other areas of long-standing American concern to promote internal peace, political stability, and economic recovery in Sudan.
Hale said Sudan's ruling generals and protest leaders have made strong pledges of commitment to bring about a transition to a civilian-led rule. U.S. Undersecretary for Political Affairs David Hale was speaking after meeting with Sudan's military ruler Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, protest leaders, and civil society figures. The ruling military council and leaders of the country's protest movement signed a declaration on Sunday that paves the way for a transition to civilian rule after more than 7 months of demonstrations and violence. Hale said he had heard, quote, very strong pledges of commitment by all the people I met to make the transition agreement work. Addressing reporters at a press conference in Khartoum, he hailed the accord mediated by Ethiopia and the African Union, as, quote, historic. He said, quote, America is fully committed to helping Sudan transition to a civilian-led government that reflects the will of the Sudanese people. The agreement was the result of fraught negotiations between the leaders of mass protests against veteran ruler Omar al-Bashir and the generals who ousted him in April. Bashir is now being held in prison in Khartoum, facing trial on corruption charges. The top U.S. and British diplomats said Wednesday they were prepared to move as soon as possible on a trade deal after Britain's planned withdrawal from the European Union on October 31. Speaking in Washington, British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab urged the EU to negotiate a new pact on Britain's departure to avoid a potentially calamitous no-deal Brexit. Raab said after meeting U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the two sides agreed on the need for quick negotiations on a two-way trade deal after Brexit strands Britain outside the current U.S.-EU trade pact. Raab told reporters, quote, America is our single largest bilateral trading partner. President Trump has made clear again that he wants an ambitious free trade agreement with UK, so I hope that we can make that happen as soon as possible after we leave the EU on the 31st of October.
We in the UK really prize that relationship. We value it enormously, and we really appreciate, both from the administration but also the personal remarks you and the President have made, the friendship that we have between the UK and the US. It is something that we prize and we look forward to nurturing in the weeks, months and years ahead.
Standing at Raab's side, Pompeo said Washington supports London's sovereign choice in withdrawing from the European Union, whatever happens.
I want to thank Britain on behalf of President Trump and our administration for your decision to assist in the protection of the Strait of Hormuz and the freedom of navigation. You've got centuries of maritime expertise under your belt, so you understand the importance of protecting international shipping from unprovoked attacks. This is a victory for meaningful, effective multilateralism. We talked a little bit about Brexit today. I'll repeat just what I said when I was in the United Kingdom. We support the United Kingdom's sovereign choice. However, Brexit ultimately shakes out, and we'll be on the doorstep, pen in hand, ready to sign a new free trade agreement at the earliest possible time.
Raab repeated Prime Minister Boris Johnson's determination to leave the EU at the end of October, whether or not the two sides set a new agreement governing post-Brexit relations.
We will stay good friends and good neighbours with our European partners, but we are at the same time determined to seize the global opportunities beyond Europe for the United Kingdom. And of course, America is our single largest bilateral trading partner. President Trump has made clear again that he wants an ambitious free trade agreement with the UK. So I hope we can make that happen as soon as possible after we leave the EU on the 31st of October.
Since Johnson took office on July 24, promising to change the previously negotiated terms of the looming divorce, EU officials have refused to reopen talks.
First of all, there is a deal to be done. The Prime Minister has expressed that to our European partners, but I think if the EU's position is that there can be no change to the withdrawal agreement, then that will be a choice that they've made, and that makes it very difficult to see how we can move the negotiations forward. But from the UK side, we will strive every sinew to find and secure a deal, if it's possible, under terms that would be acceptable to the UK. And in any no-deal scenario, we'll do whatever it takes to avoid any hard border between the North and the Republic. And I would also point out that our view is that the withdrawal agreement, as currently configured, is a threat to the Good Friday Agreement itself.
In Ohio, FBI agent Todd Wickerman said the gunman who killed 9 people in Dayton, quote, was exploring violent ideologies, but that investigators have not found any indication that it was a racial motivation.
We have not made any final investigative conclusions into the motive of the shooter or if he was assisted by any other people in this attack. However, we have uncovered evidence throughout the course of our investigation that the shooter was exploring violent ideologies. We have found very specific violent ideologies that the shooter, we know, followed and was interested in, so that is given us enough information to open up an FBI investigation to make sure we have every single tool, every investigative capability to figure out why this happened and to try to make sure it doesn't happen again. One thing I'll point out, that we have not found any indication that it's a racial motivation. That is not, we have not found that anything that indicates that it's a racial motivation at this time. I'm not, again, we have a lot to go through. We have not seen any evidence that the events in El Paso influenced him at this point.
One was fueled by racist hatred of immigrants and warned of a Hispanic invasion. The other's motives are less clear, but he apparently resented women and compiled a hit list of girls in high school. Police and the FBI were trying to piece together on Tuesday what drove two young American men to commit unspeakable acts of carnage over the weekend. Patrick Crucius, a 21-year-old unemployed white man from the Dallas suburb of Allen, opened fire with a semi-automatic weapon at a Walmart on Saturday in El Paso, Texas. About 20 minutes before the rampage, which left 22 people dead, he posted a 4-page white supremacist manifesto on the online forum 8chan that railed against Hispanics. In the document entitled The Inconvenient Truth, Crucius wrote that the attack, quote, is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas. Crucius claimed he was, quote, defending the United States from cultural and ethnic replacement brought on by an invasion, and made references to the Christchurch shootings in New Zealand, where a white gunman killed 51 worshippers at 2 mosques in March. El Paso Police Chief Greg Allen said Crucius has not shown any remorse since his arrest and appears to be in a state of shock and confusion. According to court documents, Crucius has been unemployed for the past 5 months and living with his grandparents. In a statement, his grandparents said he had lived with them while attending classes at Collin County College, but moved out of their home about 6 weeks ago. According to CNN, a Twitter account linked to Crucius frequently shared tweets by President Donald Trump. He also liked a photo of Trump's name spelled out with guns. In a LinkedIn profile, Crucius wrote, quote, I'm not really motivated to do anything more than what's necessary to get by. Working in general sucks, but I guess a career in software development suits me well. I spend about 8 hours every day on the computer, so that counts towards technology experience, I guess. El Paso is about a 9-hour drive from the Dallas area, and Crucius appears to have deliberately selected the city because of its heavily Hispanic population. El Paso lies on the Rio Grande River, which marks the U.S. border with Mexico, and has a population of 680,000, of which 83% are of Hispanic descent. When we come back, we will take you to Washington, D.C. to see the tallest structure in the U.S. Capitol. Eagle News will return shortly. This is Eagle News. I'm Anna Kui. Let's join Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot as she takes us to see the Washington Monument, the tallest structure in D.C. Take a look.
This 555 feet high obelisk towering over the U.S. Capitol stands tallest in the district. The Washington Monument, built to commemorate the first President of the United States, George Washington, is described as standing in no one's shadow. It is said no building in D.C. is allowed to be taller than the Washington Monument. Completed in 1884, it is the world's tallest obelisk. 50 flags representing the country's 50 states encircle this 135-year-old structure. Records show that an average of 800,000 people visit the monument each year, making it one of the most visited monuments in the United States. From Washington, D.C., for Eagle News, I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot, 1 with 25.
Thanks, Eliza. That is today's Eagle News. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and Facebook on facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I'm Anna Kui, and I am one with 25.